Thank you all so much for coming out. Thanks, Susan, for coming good ways for this trip. I'm glad you're coming to home territory, but it's still quite a trip, and we really appreciate that. This is our first of 21 events over the next 5 days, and so we're delighted to launch it. And it is incredibly impressive to see this many people at mid-morning during the business day. So this is great. This is great. Also, I want to thank Ron and Susan for pulling this off, as well as Joan and Anita and others who are all part of the local committee that have made this happen here. We are down to the wire. Everybody knows that, and we have a really, really good shot of winning. And what that means is that we can't let up. As Susan said, we cannot let up. We've got to do everything we possibly can down the home stretch. As I'm looking around, I'm thinking too that probably as we wrap up, we'll run out and get a few more materials, because we've got thousands of walk cards and other things that will help you to spread the word. And Meredith and I will run out and get some. By the way, I have with me today my field director, Meredith Dean. Meredith has been with us. Meredith kind of came up through the ranks. She started out with the Floyd Volunteer Corps Group. You all know we formed these volunteer corps groups back early on in the campaign and sort of added them bit by bit. And after building an incredibly strong and impressive local corps group, then we hired her. So she's been our field director since the spring, since a while before the primary. So the way I'm looking at this now is a couple of different things as I think about where we are, what we've done, and where we're going. First off, you know, I can't imagine a more urgent time to try to get people motivated who are on the fence. It's been interesting that at our town halls and sometimes other events, that in addition to Democrats, we kind of get two groups of people, and this has been an exciting part of the town halls. We get people who describe themselves as conservatives, or lifelong Republicans, or Republicans who are coming our way for a variety of reasons. Some of it is Mr. Griffith's studious commitment to doing nothing that motivates people, even in his own party. But part of it is because they like what I represent, I believe. But we also get a fair number of people that tell us that they just have been on the sidelines for quite a while. And in fact, in the course of a week, one of the individuals was at a meeting in Pulaski County, and then the other one I think might have been in Montgomery County, or I can't recall. But anyway, two middle-aged individuals, women in both cases, who had told me that they had never voted in their life, and that this was going to be their first election. Now that's, you know, a little bit sobering by itself, but I think they're representing a larger group, maybe not who've never voted, but who've sort of stopped voting, or who have become very wishy-washy about voting because they're kind of thinking, what's the point? And of course, we all know what a difference voting makes and not voting makes. We know that from the state elections. We know that from the pickle we're in right now with Trump. But nevertheless, I also really understand, when I hear it from millennials and even when I hear it from middle-aged people, why they maybe have been feeling like voting doesn't make much difference. Because the reality is that our politics collectively has not been serving everyday people, working people, terribly well for quite some time, long before Donald Trump. And so the accumulation of a sense that the government doesn't work for me, that politics doesn't matter, that my voice and my opinion doesn't count, it may not be literally true, but there's enough truth to it that I get why people have pulled back. And so we have this opportunity. And the Tuesday, what it comes down to is, on the one hand, the urgency of what's wrong. We've just got a president that is, you know, I mean, what's the point of even talking to us? It's all the thing, you know, he's remarkable. And because of him, and because of many, many years of work on, I'd say, the far right for years before him, we're on the verge of just utterly changing our democracy for a generation or two to come. We've already made profound changes between the courts and policies and rescinding of policies, but we're really on the verge of some long-term serious damage to our democracy, and tied up with that is tremendous suffering and hurt for many people, the vulnerable, people who are different, working folks, and of course the ecological catastrophes that are unfolding. So on the one hand, you could think that we could motivate people just on how bad things are and will be if we don't have a change in Congress. And that is motivating a fair number of people. But the truth is, when you're out there these last 5 days talking to people, don't just focus on that, sort of the imminent threat or the black hole that we're finding ourselves being sucked down into. That's important. But for some people, it's like, I can't deal with it. And so the other piece that we need to motivate people on is that simultaneous with all this bad stuff is an amazing well of good stuff that's happening in Southwest Virginia, rural America, all over this country and all over the world. I've been very fortunate that that's a lot of what my life has been about for the last, well, really my whole adult life, but certainly the last 30 plus years, is working with people in Southwest Virginia, in other states and other parts of the country that are bound and determined to make their community better, to build an economy that works more for people, one where people aren't having to choose between the environment and jobs, between business development and the well-being of workers. People are working on that stuff and succeeding at it all over the place. So let's not lose sight of that too, because while we're sort of feel like we're at the edge of the abyss, and that's only a slight exaggeration, we've also got this body of work, and in the 9th District, thousands of people, in the country, millions of people who every day are making their place better. And it's happening here in Clifton Forge. It's happening in downtown Marion. It's happening in St. Paul. It's happening in the heart of the coalfields. So as you go out there the home stretch, don't forget the good stuff. Don't forget to give people just as much reason to vote, to become part of the process, because they can also support a better way of going about creating an economy and a society that works for all of us. They really can. There's stuff to plug into. So remember that. Also, within that same realm, kind of focusing on the good stuff, let's remember that the process we've used in this campaign has been that same kind of grassroots energy. Because when we started, we didn't really know what we were doing. I mean, I had one short campaign 6 years ago. I learned a little bit from that. But really what I approached this, and Meredith can relate because she has a similar background, I approached it more as a community development person, a community organizer, and trying to think, how do you build capacity? That's what I was trying to figure out. Less so than how do you win an election. I was trying to think, how do you build capacity? How do you invest or develop the ability of people locally to invest themselves in the process? And I think we've been relatively successful at that. I think the town halls were a big piece of it, but they're not the only one. Having these core groups of volunteers that are doing a whole bunch of stuff. We had people coming up with things that we didn't imagine. The whole Send a Farmer to Congress thing that's now kind of in several places, in the banners and the ads. We didn't come up with that. It was local people that came up with that idea and sort of caught on. Many of the strategies that have unfolded have really been customized to the particular community. So that's something we got to build on. Whatever happens on Tuesday, we've got to figure out how we're going to build on it, because we can't go back I mean, if we're really honest, the Democratic Party in the 9th District has been kind of lethargic for a while. Yeah. The post-Boucher years, we've been either spinning our wheels or feeling sorry for ourselves. And we cannot go back to that. I think I'm going to win. I'm not one of those people who believes in the power of positive thinking, so don't even go there with me on that. I'm a realist, and I know there's a chance I won't. I really do think I'll win because of everything we've done and because of what we're going to do these next 6 days. But what I want to also say to you is, if the result is not what we want on Tuesday night, we'll be close. And what we have to do is we've got to figure out how we build on this, not only for the 2020 election, but to reinvigorate the American political body politic. That's what we've got to do, because the disenchantment, the sense of being disenfranchised that so many people feel is widespread across our country. And so we've got to make sure that we build on this one way or another. So just to kind of wrap it up, I think that I'm not going to ask Meredith to speak, but I'm going to ask her to help bring things out, is we have basically two critical needs down the home stretch. One is talking to people. And you can do that on the phone. You can do that at the door, but you can also just do that in your neighborhood and at the grocery store and when you're walking down the street. Lots of folks who come to our meetings say, I really don't like the door knocking thing, but I carry your walk cards with me and I take them out of my pocket or my purse and I share them with people. Down the home stretch, don't think for a minute that everybody knows who I am or let alone what I stand for and how I would be different. You've got to have the assumption that a lot of folks still don't know.